Bismillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? Today, in front of you, is a master theologian, is a philosophical genius, a first-rate debater. And we also have Ilyas. How are you doing?
I was going to say, I hope that introduction wasn't for me. You're giving me big standards.
I was joking, that's not about me either. So this is your rodeo, this is your first debut in the online reaction space.
Yep.
So I figured we'd start off with something easy for him.
Okay.
So we're going to start off with a very third-rate philosopher here, Sam Harris. Now, I don't mean to beat like a dead horse. Is that what they call it? Like
Yeah,
beat a dead horse.
That's the expression.
I know new atheism is more or less dying out now. It's kind of not that relevant. So I thought we might as well start off with something easy. So Sam Harris might be, he's not that relevant anymore. But I found this video of him where he's talking about Islam and how traditional values kind of have to be replaced, and why would people kind of hold on to a old way of living because that's retrograde, as he puts it. So we'll take a look and we'll respond then.
Yeah, sure.
People are seeing it as a redress to women of the West who have been conned by feminism into believing that these things are good for them. They're not good for them. We need, no one's happy. Look at the divorce rates. Look at the 60% of US teenage girls aged 12 to 16 have regular or persistent feelings of hopelessness.
Yeah.
Everyone's OnlyFans pathologically fapping themselves into a early Monster Energy hole or whatever it is that they're doing.
Right.
The answer is a return to something that's got a bit more Lindy nature to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the claim that I want to deny. I mean, it's explicitly retrograde. I mean, it is regressive. It is backward looking. It is not using all of the good ideas we've had in the meantime, right? It's a disavowal of the present and the near present. I mean, the modernity. In the case of Islam, it's a disavowal of nearly 1,400 years of wisdom and insight, right? It's a claim that in the 7th century, somebody was so smart and so wise and so prescient and so had his together that everything worth thinking about and talking about happened then, right? So we should confine ourselves to the products of that conversation.
All right, what do you think so far?
I think so far, okay. One of the funniest things that I always see with any modern ideology is they feel as though they're so much more advanced than their forefathers, the people that came before them, right? And as he said, he put it, Islam being founded around 600. He said 14 years of development in our ideology, in our philosophies, in the way we look at morals and ethics. But he forgets, 600 wasn't 600 years into humans existing. There was hundreds of thousands of years of human existence before that.
Yeah.
Thousands of years even of recorded to roughly recorded history, where humans had time to develop these ideas.
Sure.
It's not like we just came out of a cave and had these morals and traditions. They developed out of necessity.
Over time,
So, he makes it sound as though, Islam and Abrahamic religions in general are these barbaric things, when in reality, a lot of the traditions that they carry have developed for a reason.
Yeah. And actually what you were saying is actually a good idea, because if I was just looking up philosophy recently, kind of going through the history of philosophy, and you realize it goes in circles. You have a guy who comes up with this idea, and then eventually you have the critics and the skeptics, and then they go into this completely radical skepticism. And then it's at some point you don't trust your senses, you don't trust your intellect, and then after a couple of 100 years, a new sort of philosophical reformer is born. And then that ideology builds, and then again you have that skepticism, and you keep going in circles. So it kind of goes in patterns, You can't say it's just this linear upward slope of values and morals. I don't think even philosophically that makes any sense, right?
And I mean, look at the statistics that he was providing at the start, talking about how teenage girls, was it something around 60% of them regularly have feelings of hopelessness? And I'd seen the statistic actually recently. I might be able to pull it up for you here, about rates of suicide, within different groups of people, different religions. When you compare it to the rates of any other Abrahamic religion, but Islam especially, where it's barely even recognizable on the chart. And it's okay, if your modern values are so far superior, so effective compared to what we have previously, then why is it nowadays that we see a lot of these new neurotic conditions coming up? Anxiety, depression, suicide. All of that comes with this so-called, superior lifestyle, superior morals and ethics.
Which is funny, I mean, because even from an evolutionary, biological perspective, right, they say what's true, there's no objective truth. What's true is really what works evolutionarily, right? So if something works in terms of preserving life, then that becomes true, right? If you're taking an atheistic worldview, then by that definition, the most useful for preserving human life would be stuff like Islam, religion in general.
Yeah.
So you can't even argue from a atheistic position that this preserves life or this is better for life, when it clearly just isn't.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. Using your own arguments against you and still winning on your grounds.
Yeah.
And that's what you find happens a lot when you're arguing against atheism. It's like, I can use the exact same grounds that you set out for this argument, and yet I can still be right. A lot of the reason you see, hatred or disdain towards Islam nowadays isn't because of the religion. It's because of misinterpretations of the religion, intentional misinterpretations at that, because a lot of the appeal of atheism is its ease. Can you imagine?
Convenience,
It's convenient. You're told, okay, well, here's a religion where you have to pray 5 times a day. You're expected to learn another language if you live in the West, to understand a holy scripture so that you can understand what it is that you've been commanded to do. You have to be a good person. You can't drink. You can't smoke. You can't eat pork. A bunch of prohibitions. People don't want to do that when they can be told, or you can be an atheist. Do whatever you want.
Which is actually kind of, when you put it that way, like you'd say atheism is almost the evolution of Christianity, right? Because when Paul came and he said the law is abrogated, that started a domino chain of like, okay, first we're going to say no more law. And then at some point, then why do we even believe in anything, right? If it's not going to guide, it's not going to have any practical impact on our life, then it just becomes, that's the most recent outcrop of Christianity, really.
And I think that's what atheism and a lot of these more modern versions of Christianity have become, is they're the deterioration of laws, right?
Yeah.
The deterioration of religious morals. And it's like, laws need to exist. If you, based from any atheistic perspective, nothing forces you to do good.
Right.
I mean, you're a clump of cells. There's no inherent value to you. You'll die and be reabsorbed by the plants, and that's it, right? So why not do wrong? Why not be a terrible person? Then it's up to the volition of each individual person to be a good person. There's nothing forcing them.
But that becomes subjective too. Well, what is good?
What is good? And so what happens when you get rid of any and all laws? Society deteriorates, society crumbles.
Yeah.
That's why laws exist.
I think that's why when like the host was mentioning those statistics at the beginning, and I looked at some more like suicide rates, you look at divorce rates like feminism, you look at depression rates, they're just skyrocketing with the rise of feminism. Capitalism is a big one, right? I think that's kind of the real monster here, because capitalism, what it says is now it gives you a new purpose. It doesn't do away with purpose. It says your purpose becomes chasing money. So the more money you can amass, then that's supposedly the more successful you are.
More than just chasing money, just chasing material. Just
Stuff.
things, stuff.
Yeah.
And then what does it become? Capitalism is, in its purest form, worshipping this dunya. That's what it is. It says, forget everything else in your life. You're solely valued by a number. How much your net worth is, your assets, your money, what job you work, what's your status in society, how cool do people think you are?
Right.
And how do you get cool? You get money and you buy things. And it's like, then you make your entire life's purpose, okay, well, what can I do to be as rich as possible?
It's a hamster wheel, right?
Right, exactly. And then it keeps you chasing, and 99% of people don't, or I should say 90% of people don't actually end up making anything worth being comfortable and successful in life.
I think contentment, because contentment is, there is a point, like a minimum amount of wealth that you would need to survive happily. But once you pass that threshold, which I think most people in the West would have passed, I think contentment is quite independent of how much money you have. You can always look up and you can just keep wanting to, get that next promotion, get a bigger house. But I think you won't find contentment that way, right?
Yeah, it's greed, right?
Yeah. It's like a shadow. I heard a quote, like it's like a shadow. If you chase it, you'll never get it. But if you turn your back to it, it's going to follow you. It's just so profound when you put it that way. And just to wrap up, what are your thoughts on so Islam? Are we saying that you have to lock into the style of living that was there 1400 years ago? Meaning, like, does Islam say that you have to still ride camels? Live in huts, because the way he's framing it is that we have to live in a backward society. But I don't know if Islam even, commands us to live that way.
It doesn't. I'm pretty sure the Quran itself, it says, to abide by the laws of the nation in which you live, abide by the customs of the nation in which you live, so long as they don't disobey what you've been commanded to
Exactly,
do,
yeah.
right? So if the country that you live in tells you drive a car, then go ahead, drive the car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing in the Quran that forbids you from driving a vehicle. There's nothing that tells you have to ride a camel.
Yeah, you can't straw man the position. That way,
Exactly. So I feel like as you know, we'd mentioned earlier, it's purely out of misinterpretation. People intentionally misinterpret to frame the religion as being bad.
Because if you put it in the sense that we have to, like, because the way he's putting it is almost like we're disavowing or we're retrograde, right? So we're only, we're stuck in the past. But Islam has a sort of two-pronged approach to it. It says when it comes to purpose and values and morality, that stays the same. Right? There is only one right and wrong. That shouldn't change from time to time. And your purpose shouldn't change from time to time. Because if there is really a right purpose, like with the capital R, not a subjective right, there is the way to live, then that's not going to change from time to time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to science, technology, those things are allowed, those are permitted to, you go ahead, you explore, you invent.
Yeah.
Like you look at the Islamic Golden Age, you had so many different scientists, you had people who were inventing algebra, you had people who were inventing algorithms without which we wouldn't even have this camera or these phones.
Yeah.
So I think without strawmanning the position, I think you can't even say that the religion says that you have to live in this backward society when it doesn't. It says you have to maintain the values of a certain time, because we're not saying that at some point in history, as he said, a man got his stuff together and figured it all out. That's not even our claim, right? The claim is that God intervened at some point and said that this is perfection. So if God is an objective source of truth, then there is no more true after that, right? So it's not progressive. Some things are not progressive truths. Other things can be, right? Technology, science, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So anything to add?
No, I think you said it quite well. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. I appreciate.
Glad I could. Oh, what are we going for here?
I appreciate you coming out, especially
absolutely.
after your
after
slip.
my busy afternoon.
No. This guy, he puts in the blood, sweat, and tears.
Exactly, to make it here today.
Now keep it up, and inshallah see you around.
Inshallah.
Yeah, Ramadan Mubarak, or soon, inshallah.
Whenever they're watching this, right?
They'll be seeing this in Ramadan, inshallah. So I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
See you guys.